Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, it's time we continued our look at the rotation, going through everything you need to know, having a look at Celestial Storm and all the cards we're going to be losing. Like in the previous videos, I'll start with the big losses, but I will go through all the cards that I think are relevant, so you've got the full scoop on the rotation. One thing I will say about Celestial Storm, lots and lots of mediocre trainers. And honestly, I'm going to start with the big losses at the beginning, and I've got 6 for you. But they're kind of a stretch. This was not a set full of phenomenal cards. It was a set with quite a few middling cards. So starting off with the big losses, we've got Acrobike. And like a lot of people, I looked at this and went, oh, Acrobike's been reprinted, right? No, it hasn't. There was a League promo Acrobike. And in Japan, they had a new Yama Acrobike, but no actual reprint of Acrobike. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one in your hand, discard the other. Great for consistency, great for speed decks, it's gone. Tayton Liza is pretty good shuffle draw, gets you 5 new cards, or acts as a switch. But honestly, it's not as big a loss as Cynthia. And it's not as big a loss as Lily. Although with both of those cards rotating out as well, that does weirdly make it a bigger loss. Now, we are losing Rainbow Energy, and Rainbow Energy is great because it lets you, well, have an energy that is any energy if you take a damage counter when you attach it. But to be honest, a lot of decks have already dropped it because they're playing Aurora Energy. Same deal, but instead of a damage counter, you discard a card from your hand. It's fine. But Rainbow Energy nowadays tends to see most play in decks that want 4 of each, Aurora and Rainbow. So those decks are going to be a little bit sad. Never mind. Macargo is a card that we are going to be losing here. Macargo lets you search your deck for any one card and put it on top of your deck. But bearing in mind, nowadays we've just got the Oranguru from Sword and Shield that lets you swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck, creating a really nice combo with Macargo. And we see it played in Granbull decks, although that's rotating. It's been really good with Macargo GX, although to be fair, that's also rotating. It still made a good combo with Oranguru. We're going to be sad to see it go. Articuno GX has been weirdly good in stall decks, because when you're playing a stall deck, what your opponent will often do is just build up lots of energy on one bench Pokemon and then bring it active and try and sweep for the game. But Articuno has Cold Crush GX that for 1 energy, Rainbow a lot of the time, you discarded all energy from both active Pokemon, so the one you put on Articuno and the many your opponent had been stashing. And finally, Shrine of Punishment. Shrine of Punishment puts 1 damage counter on each EX and GX Pokemon between turns, but honestly here, it's not terribly relevant. It still sees a bit of play here and there, but as time goes by, we're going to be getting less and less GXs, EXs are already gone, and more Pokemon V. So even if this didn't rotate, it's already a lot less relevant than it used to be, and that trend was only going to continue. So moving on to have a look at cards that used to be cool. These are cards that did see a bunch of play in the past, but really haven't for a while. Sceptile. Now, I love Sceptile. Sceptile just had an ability that made it immune to Ultra Beasts. When Ultra Beasts were quite good, this was awesome. When everybody was getting excited about Sceptile GX, this was basically a no-brainer inclusion into all of those decks. More recently, it's been off the radar. Delmise is a Pokemon I'm very fond of, and the Delmise from Celestial Storm for free energy did 130 damage. It actually for a while was a staple in Vikavolt decks, a lot of the time Tapu Bulu decks, because it was a single energy attacker that could do a bunch of damage, and it's nice to have a single prize attacker. So we played Delmise. Single prize. Not single energy, but single prize. Regirock from Celestial Storm had a very small window, but there was a period of time where you had Strong Energy to do an extra 20 damage, and Diancie Prism Star to do an extra 20 damage, and it had an attack that naturally did 20 damage, but if there was a tool attached to it, it did 20 more damage. So you'd use stuff like Muscle Band, or indeed Choice Band. And with Choice Band and Strong Energy and Diancie Prism Star, all of a sudden that 20 damage became 40 because there was a tool, 70 because of Choice Band, 90 because of Diancie, 110 because of Strong Energy, and that actually got a KO on a Zoroark. Still works in Expanded, incidentally, so something to bear in mind. Stack Attacker GX was very trendy for a short period of time. It had an ability that reduced damage done to all of your Ultra Beasts by 10, and, true to the Pokemon's name, it did stack when your opponent attacked. It was cool. And then people realised that playing lots of high retreat 2-prize Pokemon was not worth a slight reduction in damage, and no one ever tried it again. Now, Latias Prism Star will always, on a personal level, be one of the most important Pokemon cards to me, because it was revealed on the day my baby daughter, my first child, was born, and when she was, and I'm not joking about this, 10 minutes old, I was telling her about Latias Prism Star, because she was a 10-minute-old baby, had no idea what I was saying, and I was excited about the card. I promise you this story is 100% true. For one colourless energy, it did 30 damage and attached a basic energy from your discard pile to each of your basic bench dragon Pokemon. And for a while, it looked really good in Rayquaza decks, and then Rayquaza realised it could actually exist without this, and it went away never to be heard from again. Oh, speaking of which, Rayquaza GX. Now, I'm not putting this down as a big loss, but this will go down as one of the very, very best cards from Celestial Storm. It had a great run at Worlds using cards like Max Elixir and its own ability that accelerated an energy to it, as well as discarding the top 3 cards of your deck. The main hook, of course, was free energy, 30 damage for each basic grass, and lightning energy attached to all of your Pokemon. And at first it was things like maybe Latias and Max Elixir and the ability, and then it actually took over from Tapu Bulu as the attacker of choice in Vikavolt decks, and was really good in that as well. Honestly, at the moment, it's quite good in Boltund decks, because it accelerates an energy, and Boltund does damage based on how many lightning energy you've got on the field. Yeah, that's about all it does nowadays, but make no mistake about it, Rayquaza was one of the best decks as a speed deck with Max Elixir, and then was one of the best decks as Vikavolt. It might not be one of the biggest losses as we head towards rotation now, but when we look back in years to come, Rayquaza GX will go down as one of the very, very best cards from Celestial Storm, and I could make a very strong argument it was the best card in the set. Just not right now. And finally, Dunsparce. Dunsparce was a reprint of an old Dunsparce, and what it allowed you to do was search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon, pop them on the bench, and then flick to the bench if you wanted to. If anyone's wondering, it was a reprint of EX Sandstorm Dunsparce. Nowadays, with the turn 1 rules whereby you go first, you're not allowed to attack, that really, really hurts it. But people did use it here and there. Now, there were also some fringe cards that popped up here and there, and do still occasionally, albeit not metagame defining cards. We've got the Masquerain that for a single energy literally discards all special energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. That can be hilarious if you time it right. We've got the Swampert. It's a stage 2 that lets you discard a card from your hand and then draw 3 cards. Every so often somebody makes a pretty good deck with things like Meganium that lets you just play a basic and immediately evolve to a stage 2. And nowadays stuff like Inteleon that helps you search out trainer cards. And whenever those decks come around, there's always a 1/0/1 Swampert line ready to draw some cards. There was a Regice in Celestial Storm that, if it was active, stopped your opponent playing stadiums, and for a while we thought this might be kind of fun, especially when you played it with Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star, that your opponent would then not be able to replace, and then their attacks would cost more. It never worked out, unfortunately. Hey ho. Electrode GX I could easily have put as one of the biggest losses in the set. Very nice card, lets you KO it, giving your opponent 2 prizes, but then you attach 5 energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon other than GX and EX in any way you like. Bearing in mind, it does not stop you attaching to Pokemon V, so for the last couple months of its legality, this could actually be a really genuinely relevant Pokemon. Keep an eye on this one. Mr. Mime was a fun one, it just blocked all even number attacks. It was cool. Simple as that. When I say even number attacks, I know they're all even, so they all end in a 0. You know what I mean, and I know what I mean. We're cool. There were certain situations where you can actually block here. It was cool. People used it occasionally. Still do. It's a Fringe card. Bayonet GX as well. This was one that really looked like it should have been amazing. Now, the fact that for a large period of its life it had a weakness to Zoroark didn't help. But it was one of those ones where everything was good. It had an ability that let you move a damage counter from one Pokemon to another, including yours to your opponent's. An attack that could do 130 damage for a single energy if you had a supporter in your discard pile. And a GX attack that let you recover any free cards from your discard pile to your hand. It didn't set the format on fire, but it's been played around with a lot. One that is still played a fair bit here and there, and has been in regional winning lists lately, is Alolan Raticate GX. The good thing about this, for 0 energy, you discard up to 2 cards from your hand, doing 40 for each one that you discarded. And this actually sees play in Mewtwo and Mew decks. If you're struggling to get enough energy to get a good attack off, this will actually work. 80 damage for 0 energy. Bearing in mind Mewtwo and Mew can copy the attacks of evolved Pokemon in the discard pile, it would actually help you set up while doing a bunch of damage. Still sees play today in Mewtwo and Mew decks. Slacking's always been a fun one just because it's been, for a long time, the only option for turning off non-GX abilities. But it also suffered from kinda being trash. Free energy 160 is fine, but then you couldn't attack next turn, and it just never proved to be good enough. And then Jirachi Prism Star. Always had potential, annoyingly getting better now, right as it's about to rotate out. The ability says that if you draw it as a face-down prize card, you could put it on the bench and take a prize. But you see, nowadays we've actually got the Mr. Mime from Detective Pikachu that let you swap the top card of your deck with one of your face-down prize cards. And we've got Oranguru that lets you swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. And if you get Jirachi in hand, use Oranguru to put it on top of your deck. And then Mr. Mime to put it as a face-down prize card, but you know which prize card it is, and we're going to have Scoop Up Net as well, that lets you pick up Mr. Mime and just redo this whole thing over and over again, or indeed pick up Jirachi. And this is actually a legitimate combo, coming along a little bit too late. Boo, etc. Now, moving into trainers, there were many of these, so we're going to have to go a little bit quickly. Many of these saw very little play, but they were always there or thereabouts, so I do think they're worth mentioning, but some of them, shall we say, mostly in passing. So Apricorn Maker let you search for 2 item cards with the word ball in their name and put them into your hand. Really nice in Grand Ball decks for a while. Get the right Pokeballs so you could get set up, but you could guarantee you had a 0 card hand. That was fun. Beast Ball let you basically search your prizes for an Ultra Beast. Fun in theory, rarely saw play. Bill's Maintenance let you shuffle a card from your hand into your deck and draw 3 cards. Fun idea. We had better options. Copycat actually was a card that saw a lot of play for a while. Let you shuffle your hand into your deck and draw a number of cards equal to your opponent's hand. Problem is, we've had cards like Professor Magnolia and Cynthia, which have just been better. Given that a bunch of supporters are rotating out, we've actually got to a stage where this might have seen a lot of play again, except this rotating out. Energy Recycle System was a nice card for getting your energy back, either 1 to your hand or 3 into your deck. It's going away, and a few decks will miss this. Fisherman let you grab 4 basic energy from your discard pile and put them into your hand, but when Welder decks aren't playing it, I mean, maybe Frostmoth decks would have, but I suppose we'll never know. Friend Ball let you search your deck for a Pokemon, just so long as it had the same type as one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. Could be good, but it was weirdly specific. How lets you draw 3 cards. Don't be upset about how, because we've got Hop. Although to be fair, how am I going to make as good puns with Hop as I did with How? Still got it. We're also saying goodbye to Hiker. Let you look at the top 5 cards of either player's deck, and then choose one, put it on top of their deck, and shuffle the other cards back in. I wouldn't be too worried about losing this because Chip Chip Ice Axe, although being a bit weaker, it's 3 cards rather than 5, is an item card and remains in the format. Hustle Belt lets you do an extra 60 damage if it's attached to a Pokemon with 30 HP or less with damage counters on, and we actually have started really liking this with the Spiritomb from Unbroken Bonds, so cheers for that. And we're losing Last Chance Potion that lets you heal 120 from one of your Pokemon with 30 HP or less remaining. Never really saw a huge amount of play, but it was fun that we had it. Speaking of healing, Life Herb let you flip a coin if heads heal 60 and remove all special conditions from one of your Pokemon. Was never good enough to justify the coin flip. And Lizia let you search your deck for up to 2 Prism Star cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. And this saw play a little bit here and there. It let some decks, for instance, grab a Diancie Prism Star, as well as a Beast Energy, so you could really do damage with something like Buzzwole. Or it let you grab both a Thunder Mountain Prism Star and a Tapu Koko Prism Star for lightning decks, although honestly, Lizzie has not been played for that for a while. Seemed like it should have been cool, never really was. Lure Ball let you flip 3 coins, and for each head you put an evolution Pokemon from your discard pile to your hand, and although a properly Fringe card, when you look at stuff like Charger Bug, can be attached to a Vikavolt or Vikavolt GX as a double lightning energy, or Wheezing, that if discarded with Roxy puts 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon, you can understand why this card actually would have seen a lot more play, or at least could have seen a lot more play under different circumstances. The Masked Royal lets you attach a basic energy from your hand to one of your Stage 2 Grass, Fire or Water Pokemon. It sucks. And also we've got BD nowadays, which admittedly only lets you attach to your bench Pokemon, but it's 1 basic energy to any of your Pokemon. It's so much better. Pokenav lets you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, find a Pokemon or energy and put it into your hand, and yes, that includes special energy. It saw a bit of play here and there. Rainbow Brush lets you choose an energy from one of your Pokemon and search your deck for a basic energy card to switch with it. Seemed good for multicolored decks, never really saw any play at all. Sky Pillar was very nice because it prevented all effective attacks including damage done to bench Pokemon, though do remember we are still going to have the Mew from Unbroken Bonds, which prevents admittedly only damage, but still damage. Steven's Resolve lets you search for any free cards and put them in your hand, as long as you're willing to end your turn to do so. Many people were, especially in blocking decks that didn't involve attacking. This was pretty cool. Super Scoop Up's going for now, but honestly, expect it to be re-released in the future. Super Scoop Up, it is rotating. Again, it's one of those cards I kind of thought had been reprinted. It hasn't, but it comes around fairly regularly. I mean, it's been printed 13 different times. I think it's fair to assume it's going to be coming back at some point. It keeps coming back around. Fingers crossed, ladies and gentlemen. Fingers crossed. Oh, you flip a coin. If heads, you put one of your Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your hand. It's a pretty powerful effect. We're going to miss it until it comes back, which it will. TV Reporter was never good enough. It was a nice little supporter card, draw 3 cards, then discard a card from your hand. It was never good enough. Similarly, Underground Expedition let you look at the bottom 4 cards of your deck, put 2 in your hand, and the other 2 on the bottom of your deck in any order. I mean, to be fair, we had Looker that could just draw 3 cards from the bottom of your deck, and as much as this looked like it could be quite good, and it was very good when it came around way back when, it never saw any real play. And Energy Switch would be rotating if it wasn't for the fact that Energy Switch just got reprinted in Sword and Shield. Yay! So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that is Celestial Storm. Very few real metagame defining cards being lost, but lots of fringe cards and occasional cards and cards that we need to know about. But now it's over to you guys. What do you think is the best card in this set? What are you going to miss? What would you like to see come back? And are there any cards you thought I mentioned that weren't worth being mentioned? And are there any cards that should have been mentioned that weren't? Go nuts in the comment section. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darn good regardless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.